Okay, picture this. You walk into your usual Canadian grocery store, maybe first thing January 1st, 2026, and boom, everything looks different. We're talking about the packaging, specifically prepackaged foods. There's a critical deadline coming up December 31st, 2025. It marks the end of the line for the old way of doing things. Canada's rolling out mandatory front of package nutrition symbols, FOP symbols, and honestly, this feels like the biggest change to food labels we've seen in, well, decades.
It absolutely is a massive shift. And that's really the core challenge facing food manufacturers right now, isn't it?
Yes.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is give you the essential rundown. We've pulled together the source materials detailing these pretty comprehensive regulatory changes. Health Canada announced them back in July 2022, but now that deadline is really looming.
Right. Our mission here is to unpack it all for you. The main thing. If a prepackaged food is high in sugar, sodium, or saturated fat, it gets a warning symbol right on the front. No more squinting at the back, trying to decipher that nutrition facts table, Okay, let's get into the weeds of this. How does this whole thing actually work? What triggers these symbols?
Yeah, the idea behind the FOP symbol is pretty straightforward. It's meant to be a quick visual shortcut for you, the consumer, helping you spot products that cross certain thresholds for those key nutrients: sugar, sodium, saturated fat.
Okay, so high in. What does that actually mean in numbers? If I'm making, say, cookies, what's the line I can't cross if I want to avoid that symbol?
Good question. The standard rule, the sort of default, is quantitative. It's clear-cut. The product gets the symbol if it meets or goes over 15% daily value, or DV, of saturated fat, or sugar, or sodium. And that's per serving. That 15% DV is the key number.
15%, okay. But servings are all different sizes, right? A small chocolate bar versus a frozen lasagna. Does size matter here?
It definitely does. And this is where it gets a bit more nuanced, especially for manufacturers figuring out packaging. The rules adjust based on what Health Canada calls the reference amount. Think of it as the standard amount used to compare foods. If that reference amount is small, 30 grams or 30 milliliters or less, like a little snack pack or maybe an energy shot, the trigger point is actually lower. You hit the warning symbol at 10% DV or more for those smaller items.
Oh, interesting. So smaller treats get flagged kind of sooner. I guess that makes sense. Prevents you from thinking, oh, it's small, it's fine, when it's actually really dense in sugar or something.
Exactly. But then on the flip side, there are adjustments for bigger items too. Things meant to be a main part of a meal. Main dishes, for example. They get a bit more leeway. If the serving size is 200 grams or more, the threshold goes up to 30% DV before the symbol kicks in. Health Canada tried to build in that context, Is this a quick snack or is it a full meal?
Right. Okay, let's try a quick example just to make sure I've got it. Say I make a 45-gram protein bar. Standard daily value for saturated fat is, 20 grams? So my bar needs less than 3 grams of saturated fat per serving. That's 15% of 20 grams otherwise. Warning symbol time. Is that basically it?
That's precisely the kind of calculation happening in R&D departments all across Canada right now.
Yep.
But just as important is figuring out what doesn't get the symbol. Let's talk about the exemptions, because manufacturers definitely need clarity there.
The get-out-of-jail-free cards. Okay. I assume basic stuff is safe, like you're not going to see a warning on a bunch of carrots.
Correct. The general rule exempts those basic raw, unprocessed things: plain fruits and vegetables, plain milk, raw single-ingredient meats, and poultry. The system's really aimed at processed foods where these nutrients often get added during manufacturing.
Makes sense. But what about those tricky ones? Foods that might be nutritious overall but naturally have, say, more fat, like cheese or fish.
Yeah, this is where you see the balancing act. Certain dairy products, yogurt, cheese, kefir, they get a conditional pass on the saturated fat and sugar thresholds. The rationale, based on the evidence Health Canada looked at, is that their overall nutritional value, like calcium and protein, outweighs the need for a warning on naturally occurring fats or sugars.
Okay, so it avoids unfairly penalizing some generally healthy foods.
Exactly. And seafood has its own specific rule. It's exempt if less than 30% of its total fat is saturated fat. So that allows things like salmon, which is high in healthy omega-3 fats but lower in saturated fats, to avoid the symbol. It shows they're trying to be pretty precise, scientifically speaking, while still nudging consumers towards healthier patterns overall.
Okay, it's clear this FOP symbol is the headline act, the most visible part. But digging into the source material, it's obvious this regulation is way bigger. It's like a ripple effect, hitting other areas too. Like for businesses, these restrictions on nutrient content claims and health claims, that sounds like a major headache.
Oh, it's arguably one of the biggest challenges, especially for the marketing folks. It's simple. If your product now has an FOP symbol for, say, high sodium, you suddenly can't make other claims that contradict that. Like you can't boast about low fat if you've got a high sugar warning. And this isn't just on the box, it applies everywhere. Website, commercials, online ads, everything.
So just thinking, my high fiber cereal brand gets flagged for high sugar. Does that mean I can't put that big source of fiber banner on the front anymore? Or maybe something like part of a healthy breakfast?
Well, you likely couldn't make a broad health claim suggesting the whole product is amazing if it's also flagged for something Health Canada considers a concern, like high sugar. The rules demand consistency, truth in advertising, basically. You can't send mixed messages.
But wait, didn't you mention something earlier that there are some claims they can still make, even with the warning symbol? That seems a bit odd.
Ah, yes. This is a really crucial exception, actually. It gives brands a bit of room, especially if they're trying to improve. Claims like reduced in sodium, or even potentially something like supports heart health, might still be allowed, even if the FOP symbol for sodium is present. This lets a company that maybe cut its sodium by 25% show that effort, even if the final number is still high enough to trigger the warning. It acknowledges those incremental steps.
Okay, so that requires some very careful marketing then. You can highlight improvements, but can't overstate the product's overall healthiness if it's flagged. All right, moving on from claims, what about actual ingredients? Are there specific changes baked into this whole regulatory package?
Absolutely. High-intensity sweeteners are a key focus. Think about those little packets for your coffee. If a tabletop sweetener uses aspartame, sucralose, ACE-K, or neotame, the label has to carry a very specific statement now.
And what does that statement have to say?
It has to tell you the sweetness level per serving, but described in terms of sugar. So instead of just 0 calories, it might say something like sweetness equivalent to 2 teaspoons of sugar.
Wow. That gives you way more context, doesn't it? Helps you understand just how potent that little packet is in a way calorie counts don't.
Exactly. And we should also mention a couple of other ingredient things that are basically locked in by this December 2025 deadline. The ban on partially hydrogenated oils, PHOs, the main source of those nasty artificial trans fats that's now fully cemented in the rules. That's a big win for public health, removing them from the food supply.
And there was something about vitamins too, right? A boost?
That's right, vitamin D. Fortification levels are actually going up for milk, margarine, and goat's milk. It's a specific public health move to tackle vitamin D deficiency, which is pretty common in Canada. So manufacturers need to make sure their labels reflect these new, higher levels by the deadline, too.
So, wow, it's not just the front of package symbol. It's claims, it's specific sweeteners, it's banning PHOs, boosting vitamin D. Plus, manufacturers are also juggling updates to the actual nutrition facts table, bigger fonts, standard serving sizes, and clearer allergen labeling for things like sulfites and gluten. This sounds like a masterful system overhaul they need to manage.
It really is comprehensive. Yeah. And it leads us straight into the big strategic dilemma every food company is facing right now. Health Canada's goal is pretty clear. Steer consumers away from products high in these flagged nutrients, and the research suggests it'll work. People are likely to avoid things with the warning symbol and focus more on lower sugar, lower sodium, etc.
So that forces brands into a tough spot. The source materials seem to highlight 2 main paths they can take, right? What are they wrestling with?
Basically 2 main options, neither of them simple or cheap. Option 1, bite the bullet and reformulate. Change the recipe to get the saturated fat, sugar, or sodium below that 15% DV threshold, or 10% for small items, and avoid the warning symbol altogether. It's proactive, but potentially very expensive.
And the alternative, option 2.
Option 2 is essentially accept the symbol, acknowledge it's going to be on the package, anticipate the hit to sales, and try to adjust your marketing strategy to compensate. Maybe you emphasize other good things about the product or lean into that reduced in sodium claim we talked about, even with the symbol present.
But realistically, reformulation sounds incredibly hard, especially for smaller companies.
Right.
What if the taste changes? What if the cost skyrockets? Is option 2 just sort of accepting a slow decline?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Reformulation is tough. It takes R&D time, money, new ingredients might be needed, and you absolutely cannot mess up the taste. Consumers prioritize enjoyment, full stop. For smaller players with tight budgets, the cost can be overwhelming. So yeah, option 2 is risky long-term. It's a bet that your brand loyalty or clever marketing can overcome that very obvious visual warning sign on the shelf.
Okay, let's say a brand goes with option 2, or maybe they try to reformulate but just miss the deadline. What happens after December 31st, 2025 if their packaging isn't compliant? What are the actual risks? The consequences?
Yeah, this is where it gets serious. After 2025, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, they switched from education mode to full-on enforcement mode. If your packaging isn't compliant, you're looking at real trouble. Fines, potentially having your products seized from stores, or even forced recalls. And a recall. That's a brand's worst nightmare, both financially and for reputation.
And we mentioned the marketing legal risks, too, about sending mixed messages.
Exactly. That's a more subtle, but still very real risk. If your marketing sounds like you're positioning a product as super healthy, great for kids, but it carries a high sugar warning symbol, that could absolutely be seen as misleading consumers under these new, stricter regulations. Potential for lawsuits or regulatory action there, too.
And just the logistics of it all. New packaging, maybe new ingredients that must create chaos in the supply chain.
Oh, definitely. That's a huge operational risk the sources highlight. Changing ingredients can mess up production schedules, lead times get longer, especially if you need specialized stuff for reformulation. And smaller companies, maybe with just one production line, they'll struggle the most with managing these changes and potentially having to handle both old and new packaging inventory leading up to the deadline.
Okay, so the risks are clear. Let's pivot to solutions. For any business owner or manager listening right now, staring down this deadline, what's the game plan? What absolutely needs to be happening now?
Right. The preparation needs to be methodical. Step 1, non-negotiable. Conduct nutrient profile audits, go through every single product you make, determine definitively, will it get a symbol? For which nutrient? And based on that, make the call, reformulate, or accept the symbol and plan accordingly.
Once that big decision is made for each product, then it's about execution, fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Step 2, redesign packaging. And this isn't just sticking a symbol on. It has to be bilingual, the right size in the right place. Plus, you need to revise all the related text claims, sweetener info, allergen statements, all at the same time. This needs serious lead time with packaging suppliers and printers.
And don't forget the website and ads.
Total review needed there. Step 3, review marketing and claims. Audit everything public-facing. Websites, social media, ad campaigns, sales brochures. Make absolutely sure no marketing messages clash with the product's FOP status. It's potentially a huge content cleanup job.
Let's go back to option 1, the reformulation route. It's tough, but if they choose it.
Step 4 is the reformulation strategy itself. This means working closely with food scientists' R&D teams. The goal is to lower the sodium, sugar, or sat fat without wrecking the taste or texture. Like we said, consumers won't accept a trade-off on enjoyment. This is where real innovation comes in.
And managing the switchover, inventory-wise.
Crucial. Step 5, supply chain readiness. This means planning for potentially having 2 sets of inventory, the old stuff and the new compliant stuff as you get closer to 2026. You need to sell through the old stock before the deadline, but have the new packaging ready to go seamlessly. And finally, step 6, educate teams internally. Everyone from legal and marketing to sales, design, and the folks on the factory floor needs to understand these new rules inside out to avoid mistakes.
You know, listening to all this, it sounds like a massive headache, a huge regulatory burden, but the source materials also frame this differently, as a big opportunity maybe, especially for brands willing to be transparent.
It really is a potential turning point, and it's driven by consumers. There's a striking statistic. Something like 93% of Canadians say they want transparency about ingredients. And crucially, many say they'd actually switch brands to get it.
Yeah.
So this whole regulatory shift, it gives brands a chance to really lean into transparency, to commit to cleaner labels, clearer information. Smart companies might even use these changes as marketing points, now with boosted vitamin D, or now made without PHOs, or highlighting clear allergen info.
So it's less about just compliance and more about aligning with what consumers are asking for anyway. Clarity, honesty, maybe healthier options.
Precisely. This FOP symbol and all the changes around it, it's not just red tape. It's a strategic move towards better public health, yes, but also towards rewarding companies that are open and transparent.
So bringing it back to you, the listener, standing in that grocery aisle in 2026, what does all this mean for you? It means simpler labels, hopefully. Clearer signals about sugar, salt, and saturated fat. It should make it easier to compare products quickly and make informed choices for yourself and your family. And behind the scenes, it's pushing the industry towards reducing some of those less healthy ingredients.
And for the companies, the ones who get ahead of this, who invest in smart redesigns, maybe reformulation, and clear, honest communication, they're likely going to build trust and lead the market. Those who wait, who maybe resist the changes, they could find themselves falling behind, facing enforcement issues, and losing customers who now have this very visible FOP symbol guiding their choices. So the really big question hanging over the industry right now, the one we'll see answered over the next year or so, is this. Will this 2026 deadline truly spark a massive wave of reformulation across Canada, forcing companies to make products genuinely healthier? Or will many brands just accept the warning symbol and try to rely on clever marketing to sell products that are still flagged as high in sugar, salt, or fat? That choice, playing out right now, is going to shape what our grocery shelves look like for years to come.